everybody. It's Dave here and Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers, been commenting publicly on your Minnesota Vikings for over 2.5 decades apiece. And as you can see, I'm wearing red. I'm wearing red because I'm a little bit perturbed from Thursday night's game. We're going to talk about that in theme one. What could be the problem? What might be the fix? We'll find out. Then we're going on to theme two, which we're going to talk about what possibly might be the fix. And we're going to discuss, is Kevin O'Connell got his priorities right? We'll find out. And then we're going to end up with This Week in Vikings Land, where we're going to talk about player performance. Some that has dropped off this season. And we wonder why. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And we're here. You know, it's a turning point in this season, and we're going to discuss it. But first, how are things in the Great White North, Drew? Darren? I read the comment about, is Drew going to be on? No, Drew is not going to be on.
He's been given a Veterans Day rest today.
But he has influenced the show, trust me.
Oh, yes, always does. But, just fine, Dave, other than still smarting over Thursday's loss like we all are. But gotta get on to other things. So, and this show is one of them. where we're going to continue to talk about Thursday's beatdown.
And why don't we start that with Team One? All right. We're talking about this beatdown, and it all started on Thursday night, Vikings versus the Chargers.
It sure did. And let's say it, like the Vikings put a horrible product on the field Thursday night that was unwatchable. And it was kind of like, I was thinking about it, it was kind of like you go to your favorite restaurant, you order your number one meal, and then it comes to you, and not only the restaurant gets the order wrong, it's not what you ordered. Not only that, it comes in cold and uncooked. And on top of that, you find that the sous chef's hair is all over the all over the meal, and somebody's also along that dropped a big turd on it. That was kind of what watching that performance by the Vikings on Thursday night was like. But if that happens,
this image is of what my sister ordered at a restaurant, and we called it poop nachos. Give a shout out to my sister.
Looks delicious.
I had done it. We laughed. We didn't touch it. We were pissed. And, it was bad. But that was what Thursday night was.
Yeah. But the thing is, at a restaurant, if this happens to you, well, you say, hey, waiter, I'm not eating this. This is what I ordered. And look, there's a big turd on it. So they take it back, and then you get the food that you did order, and you're probably getting it on the house and maybe free drinks too, along with that. And if that happens and the owner happens to be at the restaurant that day, he's probably coming over to your table and apologizing to you for what's happened. And you might even get a voucher to get another free meal at that restaurant the next time you come in there, because they want you to come back and keep eating there. Well, unfortunately, in professional sports, the teams we cheer for don't treat their fans like restaurants or other businesses do. You're not going to get any vouchers for what you watched on Thursday night and get a free ticket to a Vikings game. And the team probably isn't going to apologize for how they performed.
We need to start a class action lawsuit. If you're a Vikings fan and been hurt by this lousy play, call.
So that's not going to get happen. But it after that beat down in LA, the question becomes, where do the Vikings go from there? And I think, but before we get into that, I want to, one of the questions I want to ask people is, after witnessing what you witnessed Thursday night, what is your confidence level in KOC being able to turn this thing around right now? I would say that the confidence level amongst Vikings fans right now is as low as it's ever been that Kevin O'Connell can turn this around, especially after you watch them go on the road in Los Angeles Thursday night and against a struggling Chargers team. Not to say we weren't struggling as well, but Chargers weren't playing well, and they completely outclassed us and outplayed us in every facet of the game that you can think of. And so that, and plus what everything else I've seen, a lot of what else, other things that I've seen this year with this Vikings team, means that my optimism for Kevin O'Connell in turning this thing around is not very high right now at all. And I know that, yes, the quarterback play that we've gotten this year has not been very good for the most part. Injuries have really hit this team hard. But when you look at the injury situation, they've hit a lot of teams hard in the NFL this year, David. Just look at the 49ers. They haven't had Brock Purdy for most of the year. Nick Bosa is out for the season. Fred Warner's out for the season. Brandon Ayuk has been out for all the season so far, and they don't know exactly when they're getting him back. Kittle was out for a while, and yet Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, and his staff keep finding a way for the 49ers to win. They're 5-2 right now, and they haven't really played like I would consider an easy schedule, not as easy as the Vikings have. So, you would hope that's – so I don't think injuries are completely – it's certainly a factor, but it's not a complete excuse for what we have seen from the Vikings so far. And if Kevin O'Connell and I think that why my optimism is low right now is I think that for various reasons, the quarterback play, which I'm not confident will get improved enough, even when JJ McCarthy comes in time enough. And then there's the injuries, which have been tough and continue to hit us. And then there's been some roster decisions that haven't worked out so far. I think all those things are going to be a little bit too hard for the Vikings and his Kevin O'Connell and staff to overcome for this season to be the season we hoped it would be, and for this team to be the team that we thought it would be at the beginning of the season. But if Kevin O'Connell doesn't get this turned around, Dave, and the season really goes south, I think that it sets up in 2026, he and his staff, his credibility is going to continue to take a hit, I think, this season. And it sets up in 2026 a really crucial season for himself and his staff to turn things around and get the Vikings back on track. And I don't think that is where any of us expected Kevin O'Connell's head coaching arc to go after coming off the 14-3 season last year, and he's coach of the year, and everybody is throwing bouquets and blowing kisses in his way. And I think that credibility particularly takes a hit when you consider how he handled Carson Wentz Thursday night and that whole situation. And let's talk a bit about that, because other people have, about that whole situation where you have Carson Wentz in a tremendous amount of pain at the start of the game, and even more so as the game went on, playing behind an offensive line that could not protect him and didn't have his two starting tackles and as a backup center, and he couldn't move around because of those injuries. And he's playing in a game that's by about the not too much into the fourth quarter, the game appears to be over. That I don't think was a very good look for Kevin O'Connell, David. I understand. To me, we were talking about it during the game at 12:42 in the fourth quarter when the Chargers went up 31-10. I thought that should have been it for Wentz, and Kevin O'Connell should have put in Max Brosmer because, again, Wentz was just getting hammered. He was in tremendous pain. The game was over, in my opinion. This wasn't a case like the Broncos last Sunday where the Vikings were going to score 33 points in 12 minutes. It just wasn't happening, I don't think. But even if you didn't take him out then, when the Chargers make it 34-10 with 7:02 left in the fourth quarter, that definitely was the time to get Wentz out of there. But he went back out again, and that's when he took that last big hit, and then you got him crying on the bench. Well, it's easy for jackass Darren, Dave, to make a criticism after it's all done. I'm not in the locker room about Kevin and make the criticism about Kevin O'Connell about doing what he did with Wentz. But, and I understand KOC, he was asked about this and he gave his reasoning. One was that he said the medical staff said that Wentz couldn't hurt himself anymore by playing out there. That's questionable, I would say. He also said that Wentz himself wanted to continue and fight and play. And then he also said that he didn't want to put Brosmer as an undrafted rookie free agent in a bad situation like that on the road. The thing about Wentz, Dave, is that we've all played sports, right? But not professional sports. But Wentz, he's a veteran. He's been a guy who's moved around a lot of teams. What the football philosophy is amongst players, right? If Wentz is asked, "Can you play?" and he says, "No, take me out." For a guy who has been on a 6 team in 6 years and probably, I'm assuming, wants to be in the NFL next year and have a job, although after this game, he might be questioning his career choices. But if you want to do that, Dave, I don't think that if your last game that you started, you pulled yourself out of a game, that's not something you want carrying, sticking with you in the off season with the macho and the way that football players are supposed to be tough and and fight through injuries and all that sort of stuff. So Wentz wasn't taking himself out of the game, even if he couldn't walk. So I think it was really incumbent on Kevin O'Connell when the game got out of hand to take Wentz out of the game and protect Wentz from himself there. Because you weren't coming back and you're risking even more injury to your backup quarterback who you want to be the backup next week, even when JJ McCarthy does play. And then there's the other thing about Brosmer. Again, I understand this is a rookie quarterback. He wasn't drafted. But what I have seen, Dave, from Brosmer in the time that he has played is that he gets the ball out quick. He's very quick in making decisions on who he's going to throw to and when he's going to throw to. So I feel that Brosmer could have protected himself late in the game, even with the offensive line being what it was, because he gets the ball out quickly. I'm not saying Brosmer was going to go in there and completely wheel and deal and move the Vikings up and down the field. I think you would have saw a lot, like you did on the final drive, you would have saw a lot of check downs, maybe too quick to check down, but he wasn't going to be holding the ball for 5 seconds and taking a beating down there. So that's one thing. And at that stage in the game, that's okay because you've lost it. You aren't coming back. And the other thing about that is that at least it would have given Brosmer a little bit of a chance to play in a live game and not just 2 or 3 snaps at the end of the game. And it's a little bit of a development opportunity for Brosmer and the Vikings. Get him in there, see how he does. And they didn't do that. So I think a little bit of an opportunity lost there for Kevin O'Connell and with Brosmer, and was a bit disappointed, not a bit disappointed, quite a bit disappointed in how that was all handled. So now it gets us to where the Vikings go from here, Dave. And they're 3-4. That does not mean the season is over. Last year, think about the Rams. They were 3-4 as well at this point in the year. And they actually were 5-6 at the 11-game mark last year. And then they won 5 straight games, made the playoffs, smoked the Vikings in the wild card game, and they gave Philly, the Super Bowl champs, all they could handle in the divisional playoff game. So it can happen. Do I think it's going to happen with this Vikings team? No, not from what I've seen so far, Dave. And again, it has to do a lot with the injuries, but also, like, just what I've seen from the team and how they have played. Now, where could they go from here? Well, I think defensively, Brian Flores probably this week needs to take his whole defense to remedial tackling class, because they are missing all kinds of tackles, and I think allowing a lot of drives to continue when they probably shouldn't if they just wrap up and tackle properly. That's one thing that would help. Offensively, Dave, we desperately need Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, our two left tackles, to be healthy and get back to playing, because even when it's just them back, it just makes so much of a difference to the offense in the pass protection, in the run blocking, and the passing offense, and the running game just looks so much better with them out there. And so getting them back would be huge for this team. And I think it would help the offense tremendously and help who's ever playing quarterback tremendously. So there are those things I think that are really important too, Dave. But they got to get it figured out. I think, Dave, we're going to find out in the first half of the Detroit game on November the 2nd where this season is going and if the Vikings can turn it around. Because if it becomes a bloodbath in the first half, like it was in Los Angeles last Thursday night, consider the season over, and we all better start focusing on the 2026 draft the next day.
Without a doubt. And I told the guys in the NFC North chat that Detroit's going to lay a 50 burger on us. It's Flores' scheme, besides players getting old and not performing to standard. The scheme seems to be figured out. He gets beat when a team goes heavy against us and tries to pound the rock if they've got the horsepower to do it. And even the Chargers did with a third string running back.
Yes. Kamani Vidal.
Yeah. And then you get a good quarterback who's smart enough to throw across the middle, which seems to be the deficiency point, because our linebackers aren't playing well and our safeties aren't playing like they used to. Harrison Smith looks old for the first time, really, really old, like he's descended down that cliff. And it's going to be interesting against Detroit, but can they fix it? Mathematically, there's a chance.
Yes.
But I don't think it's going to happen. Now, you need people healthy. You need the starting quarterback in there. I agree with you that the quarterback play has been a big hindrance on it. You can open up the playbook, get more people involved, get your left tackles so your tight ends can get involved. And we have not heard. Has anybody heard on what happened to Josh Oliver's ankle? Any evaluation on that? So it's interesting. But do we see it getting much better? Maybe a little bit, but
before the Philly game, Flores talked about the run defense, Dave, and he got asked, how are you going to fix this? And he said it was a lot of non-sexy things, little things, like technique and angles and all that sort of that the Vikings players aren't doing wrong. And I think there is truth in that, Dave. And there are good players on this team. Clearly, we know who they are. And a lot of those players were a big reason why the Vikings went 14-3 last year. Now there's been a large roster churn compare with the team last year compared to this year. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But my lack of confidence also comes from, okay, if they're not doing a lot of the little things again, and you haven't done those little things well for 7 games, the players must be the reason why. Yeah,
That's one.
the
But that's
players must be contributing that to a large factor. I don't know if that can be coached out of them this year for whatever reason. I'm not optimistic that the Vikings will do the little things right consistently enough so that they win those 4 or 5 straight games that looks like they're going to have to now do to get to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did see Dalton asked, what would you rather have? 419 yards given up on defense or getting 135 yards on offense? Please answer. That's simple. The offensive one is the most important. Offense scores points.
Yes.
You can always outscore your opponent.
And
i.e., look at Denny Green.
Yes. And if you're moving the ball and possessing the ball, the other team doesn't have the ball itself to roll up those 419 yards in theory. Anyway, they're going to have a lot less plays to do it. So I agree, Dave, and that's probably what Dalton was getting at, was that the offense needs to really pick up their game. And yeah, if you can outscore a team, you can win. But if you're not scoring, you're really depending on your defense to hold the other offenses down and totally bamboozle them every game. And that's tough to do in the NFL when drives are starting with the kickoffs are starting at the 35-yard line on the regular, if not, beyond that. You get 2 first downs or not even, and field goal kickers in the NFL are in field goal range and nailing 65-yarders on the regular. So it's hard to keep teams under 20 points in the NFL these days, even if you got bad quarterbacking, which the Vikings have had. And up until last Thursday night, they were still getting 21 points per game. So you got to score. I prefer an offense that can move the ball, even if your defense is weak.
Without a doubt.
Now, if you got the Ravens 2000 defense, maybe you can get by on that. But that's been about the only defense that's played like that in the past 30 years. So,
yeah. All right, let's go on to theme 2. Kid gloves.
I see Mr. Pink has asked the question. It was only a matter of time. How long until Justin Jefferson demands a trade? I don't think we're there yet, but and Justin Jefferson is not the AJ Brown or even the Randy Moss kind of diva behavior guy. But like any great player, if he's playing on a middling team for a certain length of time, he and his agent are going to get fed up with that and want to move on. But we're not there yet. Could we get there next year if this continued? Possibly, but we're not there yet.
Anthony's surprised we waived Kobe King. I think they were thinking he'd make the practice squad, Anthony. And he obviously didn't because he got picked up by a team that's worse than ours, the New York Jets.
Yes, and a 6th-round draft pick. So there's that. But it still highlights the whole Kwesi Adofo-Mensah can't draft and reignites that debate, I think, to a certain
get into that. We have a comment.
Kevin O'Connell and kids' gloves. So I wrote this before we played Thursday night, but I think it's so some of what I said might not sit well with folks in the comments section, but we'll see about that. But I think it was fair to say, Dave, that when Kevin O'Connell announced that Carson Wentz was going to start his 5th straight game on Wednesday, that there was a fair amount of Vikings fans who were pretty frustrated by that and thought that J.J. McCarthy, even if he wasn't 110% healthy, it was time for McCarthy to be put back in there, especially after they'd seen Wentz throw a pick 6 and miss open wide receivers and stare down receivers that are open and not throw to them for whatever reason and make questionable decisions. They just felt it was time that, they'd seen enough and it's time to go to, Kevin O'Connell. But Wednesday when O'Connell was talking about this to the media, Dave, he said McCarthy was just not there. and that McCarthy was still feeling pain when he was doing like reactionary movements that you can't plan for in a practice setting, but happen all the time in the game. So, and McCarthy had also been limited all 3 practices. McCarthy was still not fully healthy yet, and O'Connell said he would not get in the game until he was. So O'Connell was remaining consistent with what he had said when McCarthy actually got injured. He didn't want McCarthy to aggravate the ankle injury by coming back before he was fully healthy and miss even more development time in a second season after he missed so much as a rookie. And so certainly I think folks were and are continue to be frustrated by KOC's cautious kid's glove approach with McCarthy. And not just now, but this preseason as well, Dave, because after missing all but one preseason game his rookie year, O'Connell only played him 1 series this preseason. And some people felt that wasn't nearly enough game action, even if it was in preseason, for McCarthy, that he needed more considering he'd missed so much time as a rookie.
And it leads to injuries. You got to ramp up.
You've always been a proponent of that.
Not just on old linemen, but also on quarterbacks, obviously.
Now I do think that Vikings fans are frustrated by this, especially with the more Wentz played, the more his flaws were evident that were hampering the Vikings offense, right? But I have to say that I got to give O'Connell credit, maybe almost admire his consistency with making the decisions he has that he thinks is best for McCarthy's future, because I don't know how much attention he pays to what is being written and said about him and the Vikings quarterback situation this year, Dave. However, he must know that as being a head coach in the NFL and being as high profile as it is, that not everybody agrees with how he's handling it and how he's been handling McCarthy's injury and the development of McCarthy as the Vikings struggle. But what's clear to me is that O'Connell does have a clear plan for what he thinks will result in McCarthy having a successful career as a Viking, and he's not going to let any reporters or talking heads or social media posts pressure him into deviating from that plan. And Dave, that plan might not work. There's no guarantees in the NFL. You may not agree with that plan, but I'd rather have a coach that sticks with his plan rather than changing it every time there's a mini crisis or the wind changes direction. And I'll add that this cautious approach also applies to Max Brosmer. I know I just said that Kevin O'Connell a few minutes ago, that Kevin O'Connell should have taken Wentz out of the game in the fourth quarter and put Brosmer in. But I didn't say that O'Connell should have started Brosmer in that game over Wentz. Even after we've seen what we've seen from Wentz for 5 games now. I like Brosmer. I think he's done very well when he's played. But that was mostly been almost all in preseason. And Dave, as we get older and watch more football and preseason games, for me anyway, what I see in preseason now, especially when teams aren't playing their starters hardly at all in a lot of cases, and is what the players are doing that we're seeing out there, it rarely translates into the regular season if they're thrown in there with the actual starters. So he looked good, but it was preseason. And I hope that Brosmer can develop into a potential starting NFL quarterback, because that gives us a backup plan if McCarthy doesn't pan out. And if McCarthy does pan out and be the franchise guy that we hope he is, then Brosmer becomes a very useful trading chip down the road. But start him now, start him in LA on Thursday night, a rookie who wasn't drafted. Yes, there have been guys, there's example of guys who weren't drafted as well, who became successful NFL quarterbacks. You think of Kurt Warner, Tony Romo, Jake Delhomme with the Panthers, Warren Moon, Jeff Garcia is another one. But the list isn't very long. And none of those guys came straight out of college, didn't get drafted, and then are thrown as a starter in the NFL in their rookie year. Moon and Garcia played a bunch of years in the CFL. Delhomme played in the NFL Europe. Romo had a couple of years to marinate. Warner, same thing, arena football, 1 year as a backup in St. Louis before he got his starting gig. So their situations were a bit different than Brosmer's. And I think what's best for Brosmer in 2025 is hopefully he sits, he watches, he listens, he learns, and then gets a full off season in 2026 to continue to refine his craft. And then he makes his move to be the Vikings backup and puts himself in a position to play, if McCarthy again somehow can't play in a game or two or something like that. Right now, I don't want him forced into playing before he's ready just because we're sick of what we're seeing from the other quarterbacks. Let's do right by him, just like O'Connell's been trying to do right by McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. Now, we get asked, how do we know, by Mike Vaughn? And it could be what they're seeing in practice. We've been through this before with Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Or it could be, if you want to go conspiracy, the one guy from the Gophers said he doesn't want to display a quarterback that outplays his first-round draft choice. We'll find out. I thought he did great when he came in, but the Chargers weren't playing hard. They'd already won the game, so.
No, and they weren't, playing hard, whatever, but they certainly weren't blitzing Brosmer or doing anything exotic to him like they would if he was starting. And Brosmer didn't throw the ball downfield at all. Like it was screen passes, dump offs, which is fine. He didn't get sacked. He didn't throw any. He put the ball in good places. They had positive yardage, but what you put him in the game from the start. How successful would the Vikings offense be? I think probably best case scenario is that Brosmer goes in there and he performs like maybe Dylan Gabriel did against the Vikings in London, which wasn't bad, but the Browns didn't win that game either. And Gabriel didn't do a whole heck of a lot through the air in that game. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that'd be best case scenario for Brosmer. Again, hopefully he doesn't have to play and gets to have a redshirt year with the Vikings this year, which hasn't quite happened because he's actually has gotten into the game two games now in mop-up duty, but he has gotten into the games.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Anthony KOC doesn't care what we think as fans. He shouldn't have to. It's his job on the line, not ours.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they keep selling out games, which they are, it doesn't matter. Absolutely does not matter. But let's hopefully this man, J.J. McCarthy, turns out to be who we thought he would be. We'll find out.
And it's been said done by others, Dave, but the whole people making a verdict on him after 2 games is very unfair. McCarthy, I'm talking about.
And actually, it's going to be unfair after this season.
Yes.
Yes. We want to see growth.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about it on the live at the 2-minute warning show Thursday night too. That don't expect McCarthy to light it up against the Lions if he's starting, or there's going to be more struggles. There could be more real stinker games, performances like him, just like against Atlanta, but perhaps in game 12 or game 13, like you kind of saw with guys like Bo Nix last year, or even Drake May towards the end of the season, that he gets it and he starts playing better, and then you build on that, and then he's got something positive going into 2026, and he's actually taken some more live hits and seen more defenses after a whole rookie year of not seeing that, and now 5 extra games in this regular season not seeing that.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, what comes after theme 2?
Theme 3, but not inside the numbers.
No. This one is This Week in Vikings Land, because Drew's taking a well-earned break.
Mr. Pink down there predicting the Vikings trade for Mac Jones. It's unclear when Purdy's coming back. The 49ers still don't know. So there's no way they're trading Jones when Purdy's health is in question. And there's no guarantee when Purdy gets back, he won't get hurt again. So I don't think that the 49ers at 5-2 are going to be getting rid of Jones with the way he's played with them so far. We did see, speaking of quarterbacks, the Vikings could acquire, Dave, did you see that ESPN story where the trade target, trade for Kirk Cousins?
Kirk is starting tomorrow. Supposedly.
Really? I didn't.
Yeah, because Penix has a bone bruise he's dealing with.
Really? Oh. Well, that comes at a pretty good time for him and the Falcons, right? If he throws 350 yards and they win, that's going to up his trade value significantly.
Yep.
For some team.
I read on Twitter that's what they're thinking. I think it was Schefter or somebody. So it was legit.
Okay. Anyway, digress. This week in Vikings land. Yes. Three segments here. The first one's going to be looking at just talking about Ivan Pace Jr., linebacker. Against Philly, Sunday ago, he got benched. Didn't play one defensive snap, 0, like his uniform
like his
number. Yeah, and instead, against the Eagles, Brian Flores decided to go with Blake Cashman coming back after missing 4 games with the hamstring injury. Flores decided to go with Cashman and Eric Wilson as his starting inside linebackers and not Ivan Pace Jr. And Dave, now Pace played a little bit more against the Chargers. He ended up playing 12 defensive snaps. Still not a lot. But as the game went on, particularly in the second half, Flores again had basically benched Pace. He was on the sidelines, not playing except on special teams. And it was Wilson and Cashman in there when he had 2 linebackers on the field. And Dave, the benching of Pace, it's not that it isn't warranted. He hasn't played very well, I think, this season. He was credited with 12 missed tackles before the Chargers game, which seems like a lot, but that's just me. And
Thanks,
so
I appreciate the laugh.
The problem, though, with Pace is, though, even though the benching is warranted, the problem is that Eric Wilson is 31 years old. He's on a 1-year deal, and he's not in the Vikings' long-term plans. Maybe they bring him back next year. They'd probably be smart to do so as a backup, but certainly he's a year-to-year guy for any NFL team right now. He's not the future. Pace, on the other hand, is 24 years old. He's going to turn 25 in mid-December. And at least at the start of the season, Pace would have been, I think, very much considered part of the Vikings' long-term plan. Somebody you would seriously have to consider whether you're going to extend him for another 3 or 4 years, and he's going to be a key part of your defense in 2026 and beyond. Well, that seems a lot less certain right now with the way he has played. And, it's a problem because, of course, the Vikings have not drafted very well under Kwesi Adofo-Mensah since he came here in 2022. And because of that, the Vikings are not brimming with a tremendous amount of young, promising talent on the roster, I would say. They've got a lot of veterans on this team who don't have a lot of years left in the NFL, like Wilson, like Hitman Smith, like some others. And so Pace, having regressed badly compared to his rookie year, even last year, the problem is that this is creating a potential roster hole for the Vikings in 2026 when they're going to be $50 million over the cap at the start of the offseason and don't have a lot of young talent, obvious talent that could come in to challenge Pace or replace him if the Vikings don't decide not to retain him. And he is a restricted free agent at the end of this year. So, again, roster hole created unless Pace regains his rookie season form, but so far it hasn't been looking too good on that end of things for Ivan Pace Jr. And we thought he was a real gem that the Vikings got They plucked him off the undrafted rookie free agent pool, and he was a gem in his rookie season and at times last year, but things haven't gone very well for him in 2025, which we can say about, I guess, the Vikings and a lot of and a lot of their players on there. Speaking with players whose roles have been reduced on defense, want to talk about.
Hold on, before we get off pace.
Yep.
I've read that during the Eagles game that one of the reasons he was benched was because they wanted to stop Barkley. And so they built a defense to stop the run during that game.
And it did.
Now they sacrificed the pass, obviously, with a perfect rating going to their quarterback, but it did stop the run. So this is where we're getting into the Flores. How does he stop the bigs without sacrificing the game? Because the Eagles obviously go big with big offensive linemen, Barkley running, etc. And they did stop, but it's at the expense of the pass. And that's after we started out so good with our secondary being number one in the league for a while. It's an interesting play on how they do this. That's why when we go play Detroit, which goes big and passes, I think we're screwed. Just the way it is. But against the Chargers, they didn't anticipate the run game being as strong as it was. They anticipated Herbert being as good as he was, but not the run game.
Uncertainty whether Alt was going to be playing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And so he got some playing time until Herbert started destroying it. But yes, it's going to be interesting.
Thanks for adding that in, David. Moving on to another defensive player whose role seems to be reduced. Again, I want to talk about Javon Hargrave. His snap counts have been dropping lately. In the first 4 games of the Vikings, again, he had, in 3 of the 4, he had between 40 and 48 defensive snaps. Quite a bit for a big round belly. In the last 3, he had 33 against the Browns, a dip, only 18 against Philly, and then 22 against the Chargers Thursday night, which was only 5 more than Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, who's a rookie rotational guy. Now,
Brian Flores trying to stop one thing or the other.
Yes, I think that's right. Now, I think the reason you're seeing this is because Javon Hargrave, reputation as a ferocious pass rusher in his career, but not a good run defender. And it seems that Flores, over the last 3 games, has decided that he's only going to use Hargrave on obvious passing downs. So I get it, but the problem is that Hargrave has, outside of the Bears game, the season opener, when he got 2 sacks, he's been pretty quiet on the pass rush as well. And Hargrave, when the Vikings signed Hargrave to that 2-year deal for $30 million of funny money, but 17 guaranteed, next season he's set to be over 21 million on the salary cap. There's no way the Vikings keep Hargrave on the team at that salary cap hit, and with the way he's playing now. And that salary, Dave, when we saw that contract signed when it did, we knew the way it was structured that Hargrave might only be a guy who's here 1 year anyway. But you hope that he does ball out and play and be the player that they expected him, because that'd be good for the Vikings and it can give them something to think about in 2026 about whether they want to bring him back at age 33. But the way it's been going right now, not looking so good. There's still time for Hargrave to show that he's still close to the player he was when he was a fearsome disruptor in San Francisco and Philly. But again, the returns through 7 games through him have not been very good, and certainly not good enough for him to be retained next year and a member of the Vikings next year. And with him not playing well, that's another reason why the Vikings defense is not playing as well as we were expecting them to be playing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. He won't be here next year.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, because guys like Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez and Ingram Dawkins are much cheaper, younger, and playing just as well or better than him right now.
Right, especially Redmond. Redmond was outstanding during the game. But expect Hargrave to be gone. Hitman will be retired. There's going to be a turnover for next year.
There sure is.
Let's hope we can draft some good ones.
Dave says that with quite a chuckle and maybe not such a hopeful tone. But anyway, let's talk about TJ Hockenson a little bit, Dave, just as we wrap things up. But when we traded for Hockenson in 2022, became an immediate impact player for the Vikings, gave us exactly what we needed at the tight end position. Until he hurt his knee in 2023, late in the season in 2023, his stats in 25 games with the Vikings was he caught 155 passes, almost 1,500 yards in that time, 8 touchdown catches. Well, this year through 7 games, TJ Hockenson has just 27 catches for a measly not under 230 yards and 1 touchdown catch. And I feel, Dave, that he has become an afterthought in the Vikings offense. They're rarely targeting him. When they have been targeting him, it seems like it's only late in the game when they're trying to claw back from a 2 touchdown deficit or more. They're not even looking at him and throwing to him in the first half, which seems odd because we thought he'd be a great safety blanket for McCarthy initially, and even Wentz when you're facing a lot of pressure. So not great for Hockenson. Now, is the issue here that he's just not the same player he was since his injury, Dave? Has he lost some speed or explosiveness or lateral quick twitch ability because his knee just isn't the same anymore? Or is it more, again, quarterback play has been mostly piss poor, and you've also got an offensive line that's been ravaged by injuries and is playing backups and backups to backups, and so Hockenson is being asked to chip and maybe even just outright block on passing plays where normally he would be out running routes. I think it's more of the latter. But again, here's the thing. TJ Hockenson at $16.6 million salary cap hit. That's third most on the Vikings right now. And it goes up in the next 2 years to over $21 million in 2025 and over $23 million in 2026, over $21 million and over $23 million in 2027. And he's under contract until 2028. So that's a lot of coin for a guy who right now is on pace to average 65 catches, under 600 receiving yards, and his yard per catch average is 8.2, which is the lowest of his entire career. And those stats I'm giving you would be the lowest he's had as an NFL player playing more than 10 games in a season since he was with the Lions in 2021. And that year he only played 12 games, not the full 16 at the time. So you got a guy who's underutilized, getting paid a lot of money while he's underutilized. The Vikings have to, and Kevin O'Connell have to figure out a way now and in the future to get Hockenson more involved and make him a more effective player, because he'd be very useful to this offense if you could find a way to use him like he had been used in the past. But if they can't figure this out, Dave, again, the salary cap implications going back. If you've got a guy making that much money and you're not utilizing him for whatever reason, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell might have to decide, what do we do with TJ Hockenson? And I'm talking about 2026, not now, but do they have to move on from him and try to trade him because he's just an underutilized asset that they can't unlock his potential here? I know I'm getting ahead of myself with this, but
renegotiate his salary.
Yes, which I don't think he's going to be too keen on.
Depends what he can get elsewhere.
Yeah, but I think Hockenson might be, as a guy who's like a lot of pros, is like, I like it here, but they're not using me. So I'm either taking a pay cut here and still in a situation where they're not using my talents as best as they can, or I can go somewhere else and make maybe a little bit less money, but they're throwing me the ball.
Yeah.
So there's that too. But there could be a decision brewing with Hockenson in 2026 if the Vikings can't figure out how to use him more like they used him in 2022 in 2023.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then is he as good as prior to his knee injury?
Yes.
Hey, hopefully JJ McCarthy uses him as a safety blanket. And all goes well, and we back into the playoffs or something stupid like that. But we'll find out.
Yeah, we will.
Hey, who knows? We may upset the Detroit Lions next Sunday.
Yeah, well, I'm getting pretty sick of losing to the Lions for sure. That we lost them 5 straight, and time to turn it around. But my optimism of that happening, of course, is not very good at this point. Yeah.
Hey, like I said, I told the guys they're going to throw a 50 burger on us. But hey, anything's possible. You know, your fairy godmother can come and wave her magic wand, and suddenly we're good.
Yeah, like a couple of turnovers, a strip sack of Goff. Rodgers doesn't drop a pick 6 like he did against the Chargers. The turnovers are always a great equalizer. Also, the Vikings actually playing better, particularly on offense, and possessing the ball enough so that Detroit does not get the chance to put a 50 burger on you. Those things would help greatly. I don't expect those things to happen, Dave, and I don't think you do, and I don't think a lot of people on the chat today do. But could it happen? Sure.
I agree with Two-Tone. I'm not giving up on them.
No. We're just being realistic based on what we've seen through 7 games so far. I mean, if you're going to come here after what you've seen through 7 games by the Vikings and say, I have 100% full confidence that this team is going to be 10-7 or 11-6 and make the playoffs and go on a playoff run
for 13 wins.
Yeah. I don't know what you're smoking or drinking at this time, but I'll gladly take it. But I just think we and a lot of people are, hey, you can call it pessimistic or negative, but I think it's more realistic.
Cody says pigs fly when we beat the Lions. I might use that on the next on the thumbnail on the Monday after, if it is indeed the case, Cody.
Yes,
it's quite inspiring.
And if that does happen, then the talk on the Vikings is going to go do a 180. You know it. You're going to be, they're back. Could they be ready to go on a run? And I'd hold the brakes on that too if that happens. But I'd gladly take a win over Detroit because it seems like, again, 5 straight losses to the Lions is not something that sits well with me or you or anybody who's watched the Vikings.
Any losses to the in division does not sit well.
Well, no.
But especially the Lions over the last few years and how it's turned their fan base, not all of them, but some of them, absolutely insufferable.
Mm-hmm. Hey, when you've been crap for 50 plus years, I guess.
Haven't won a championship since 1955.
Yeah, I guess you puff up your chest pretty quick after 2 or 3 seasons of success.
Well, and it's
wouldn't be me, but
you've got young fans that only basically have known the winning of the last few years, and so they're high on themselves. But we'll see.
People jumping on the bandwagon who never really followed the Lions much, even though they're kind of fans, and now they're again. So yeah,
Delton predicts we sweep the North. Hey, from your lips to Odin's ears, buddy.
Oh, well, Delton, hey, man, that's a hot take based on what we've seen of late. We did beat the Bears, but in Chicago. Hey, I'll take it. 6-0 in the division. That certainly would help our chances of making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. But at least make the season feel better.
It would. And I don't know what else to say. I was going to say the Vikings had been mostly, they've been in every game. Even the Atlanta game the score was not close, but it was close for much of the game. The Vikings had been in every game until this one, but they really hadn't been the better team in any of those games other than the Cincinnati game. And that's where the pessimism for me comes from. Not just the Chargers beating us so badly, but just our overall play through 7 games just doesn't look like a team that's capable of winning even 9 games.
Yep. Gary, it's been good to see you, and I want to thank everybody that's been in the chat, from Delton to Z30 to Mr. Pink, Cody, Peter, everybody that's in here. I've seen you all. You guys absolutely rock. It's going to be interesting. It will be interesting the rest of this season, but there's a chance. Any last words, everybody?
No, sir. Lions have the bye tomorrow, right? So
yes, they're on the bye.
Are the Packers on the bye?
Mm-mm.
Anyway,
the rest of the division's already gone through their buys. Mm-hmm. The last team.
So yeah, tomorrow some football watching for us all, and we hope for a stellar week of preparation for the Vikings and the coaching staff, because they are going to need to be prepared going into Detroit, facing a rested Lions team.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
who are
getting
healthier, and I think hitting their stride quite nicely. I think right now they put a whooping on Tampa Bay, and everybody was all on Tampa Bay's jock and saying that Baker Mayfield was an MVP candidate, and they only got 9 points or something like that in Detroit on the road. So I don't know how the Vikings are, if they don't have Darrisaw and O'Neal back, I don't know how the Vikings are going to be able to block well enough to keep whoever's playing quarterback upright in Detroit. But we got a ways to go before that happens. Let's see how the injury report looks.
Yep. And with that, what do we say, buddy?
We say SKOL Vikings, baby, and thanks everybody for watching. Love you guys.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!